Ever wonder why sailors call the bathroom the head? Or why going crazy is called going bananas? The United States Navy has a language all its own, forged over centuries on the high seas. And every strange term tells a story of survival, superstition, and the unbreakable bond between sailors and the ocean. Welcome aboard as we dive deep into the linguistic history of Navy slang, the colorful language of the fleet that has shaped American military culture and seeped into our everyday vocabulary in ways you might never have imagined. Let me take you back to the age of sail, when wooden ships ruled the waves and the American Navy was just finding its voice. These weren't just vessels, they were floating cities, isolated from the world for months at a time. In that environment, sailors developed their own vocabulary out of necessity. Communication had to be precise, immediate, and understood by men from different backgrounds and nationalities. A misunderstood command could mean the difference between life and death in a storm or battle. Take the word head, for example. Why do sailors call the toilet the head? Well, in the old sailing days, the bathroom facilities were located at the bow or head of the ship, literally at the front where the figurehead was mounted. Waves would crash over the bow and naturally flush away waste. It was crude, cold, and wet, but it worked. The term stuck, and today, even on the most modern aircraft carriers, sailors still hit the head. Then there's the galley, the Navy's kitchen. This term comes from the medieval galleys, the long rowing ships of ancient warfare. The cooking area on these vessels was critical because feeding the crew meant maintaining their strength and morale. Over time, any ship's kitchen became known as the galley, and the cooks who worked there became some of the most important people aboard. Speaking of food, let's talk about going bananas. This phrase actually has Navy origins. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, ships transporting bananas from the tropics were fast vessels because bananas spoil quickly. These banana boats had to make rapid journeys, and the holds where bananas were stored became breeding grounds for tarantulas and other critters. Sailors working in these holds, exposed to the heat, the spiders, and the stress, would sometimes lose their composure. They'd go bananas. The term spread from the maritime world into everyday language. The deck is another fundamental Navy term. Every sailor knows the deck isn't just a floor, it's a level of the ship, a workspace, a parade ground, and sometimes a battlefield. When someone says all hands on deck, they're calling every available person to help. This phrase originated when ships needed maximum manpower for critical operations, like battling a storm or preparing for combat. Everyone, regardless of rank or duty, had to report topside. Let's talk about scuttlebutt. Today, it means gossip or rumors, but its origins are purely nautical. The scuttlebutt was a cask of drinking water on a ship, and it had a hole or scuttle in it for sailors to drink from. Just like office workers gather around the water cooler to chat, sailors would congregate at the scuttlebutt to exchange news, rumors, and stories. The water station became synonymous with gossip itself. Then there's the phrase, 3 sheets to the wind, meaning someone is very drunk. This comes from sailing terminology where sheets aren't sails, but the ropes that control the sails. If 3 sheets were loose and blowing in the wind, the ship would lurch and stagger unpredictably, much like a drunk person stumbling around. Sailors adopted this vivid imagery to describe their inebriated shipmates. Rank and structure in the Navy also gave us unique terms. Take the word skipper. This comes from the Dutch word schipper, meaning ship's captain. Dutch maritime influence was strong in early American naval development, and many Dutch terms were absorbed into English naval vocabulary. The skipper became an affectionate, informal way to refer to the commanding officer. The bosun, pronounced bosun, is another example. This officer is responsible for the hull, rigging, and deck crew. The word comes from Old English bat, meaning boat, and swain, meaning servant or attendant. The bosun was literally the boat's servant, the person who kept the ship in working order. Even today, the bosun's pipe, a whistle used to relay commands, is a symbol of naval tradition. Now let's explore some phrases that reveal the superstitions and beliefs of sailors. Dead in the water means motionless, unable to move forward. For a sailing ship with no wind, being dead in the water was terrifying. You were vulnerable to enemy attack, drifting currents, or running out of supplies. The phrase captures that helpless feeling perfectly. Cut and run is another great example. In emergencies, if a ship needed to escape quickly, sailors would cut the anchor rope rather than waste time hauling it up. They'd run with the wind, sacrificing the anchor to save the ship and crew. Today, it means to leave abruptly, often abandoning responsibility. Sailors also gave us the phrase by and large. In sailing, by means into the wind, and large means with the wind. A ship that could sail well both by and large was versatile and reliable. Over time, by and large came to mean generally speaking, or for the most part. The Navy's linguistic contributions aren't just historical curiosities. They reveal how sailors saw their world. Every term reflects the reality of life at sea, the dangers faced, the camaraderie built, and the humor that kept men sane during long, difficult voyages. These weren't just words. They were survival tools, badges of identity, and connections to a proud tradition. Consider the term jerry-rigged or jury-rigged, meaning a makeshift repair. When a ship's mast was damaged, sailors would construct a temporary or jury mast to get home. The ingenuity and resourcefulness required to keep a damaged ship afloat in the middle of the ocean was legendary. That spirit of making do with what you have is embedded in the term itself. Even modern Navy slang continues this tradition. Sailors today talk about the goat locker, the chief petty officer's quarters, or refer to the non-designated personnel as undays. They call the enlisted dining facility the mess decks and label inexperienced sailors as boots. The language evolves, but the tradition of creating a unique, insider vocabulary remains strong. Navy slang has also bled into civilian life more than most people realize. When you feel under the weather, that's a nautical term. Sailors who were ill would be sent below deck, literally under the weather side of the ship where it was calmer and more protected. When you're taken aback, that's from when a ship is suddenly caught with the wind blowing its sails backward, stopping forward progress unexpectedly. The language of the fleet is a living history, a testament to the courage, humor, and creativity of the men and women who've served at sea. From the wooden frigates of the Revolutionary War to the nuclear-powered carriers of today, sailors have crafted a vocabulary that's uniquely their own. It's a language born of necessity, enriched by tradition, and spoken with pride by those who answer the call to serve on the water. So the next time you hear someone say they're feeling under the weather or that a situation is dead in the water, remember you're speaking the language of sailors, a language forged on the decks of ships that defended our nation and explored our world. Navy slang isn't just colorful expressions. It's the living voice of American naval heritage, passed down through generations and still echoing across the fleet today.